how to fast. Maybe we need to start with why fast. Jesus, in talking to his disciples, said, when you fast, don't look somber as the Pharisees do, etc. And he gave some instructions for fasting. But that phrase, when you fast, makes it really clear that fasting was an assumption. And as we go into the book of Acts, we see the early Christians fasting. They fast and they pray and they seek God, and they fast and they pray and they send out people on mission. Fasting was a part of their life. Of course, there's a lot of fasting in the Old Testament and a lot of principles for fasting there. And as you look at it, you come across this phrase called humbling yourself. And it's become pretty clear to me that that phrase, humble yourself, is almost synonymous with fasting, that fasting is actually a part of what it means to humble yourself. It shows that you're desperate, that you're needy, that you're focused, that you're dedicated, that there's an intensity. There are also examples of fasts in Scripture that are not just about eating no food, as in the case of Daniel, who fasted from fancy foods and lotions. You might even hear about the Daniel fast, which as it's presented today is a partial fast. It's like a vegan diet, prohibits animal products, leavened bread, processed foods, caffeine, alcohol for 10 to 21 days, kind of reflecting what Daniel did. And it's another form of fasting. You can fast from leisure activities. You can fast maybe from shopping online. Maybe somebody needs to hear that today. But I would describe fasting as physical self-denial for spiritual purposes. It's self-denial to create room for you to seek God and for God to deal with you. Now, there are many different benefits to fasting and maybe some surprising benefits. There's the time factor. You'll be surprised if you do a food fast, you don't eat food, how much time you actually spend preparing to eat and eating. Not eating frees up a lot of time in your day. And then the idea is you use some of that time then for seeking God, for spending time in the Word and praying or whatever He's leading you to do. There's also a discovery as you fast how much you love and how much we love food and how distracted we are by it and how food saturated our Western culture is. And really it shows how much we value food. But more than that, emotions might come to the fore. We might get a little grumpy or irritable, and it will surface things in our heart that are there that we often suppress by medicating with food and drink. There is a significant health factor to fasting. We don't fast for weight loss. It's actually not a great weight loss method in the long term. It's actually a great weight gain method in the long term. There are, of course, health factors to fasting. It's not so much great for long-term weight loss, but for short-term weight loss or just doing a digestive cleanse of some kind, there are health benefits to fasting. I'm sure you've heard about them and can read about them many places. In the expected larger training on feeding yourself, we might go into this in more detail. But this class here is intended to get you going. And I think this is the place probably where I'll insert some kind of medical disclaimer. Here's some practical tips on fasting. Why are you fasting? Have a clear answer. It might be about seeking direction or empowerment. It might be seeking breakthrough in an area in your life or somebody else's life, but know why you're fasting. What's the nature of your fast? Decide this in advance. Is it going to be a fast from all food or all solid food or certain types of food or coffee? Is it going to be a fast from social media or a major leisure activity? What is the length of your fast? A good way to start in fasting, a 24-hour fast, is to fast from dinner to dinner. You eat dinner, say one evening at 5 or 6 o'clock, fast for 24 hours, and then eat just a little bit later the next day, so you have a complete 24-hour fast. You've fasted 24 hours but missed 2 meals. I really recommend you decide in advance how long your fast is going to be. Otherwise, you will be tempted to shorten it. So decide in advance how long it ought to be. While you're fasting, I encourage you to stay hydrated. You might, especially in a longer fast, consider getting different electrolytes. Here's some like BioSteel you can get, or Element, which just is some minerals you add to water to give you more than just water, which is helpful if you're doing a long fast. You can even make some of your own. No matter how long you're fasting, it's important to eat lightly both before and after your fast. We found that a very helpful way to do a 3-day fast is to have 2 days of just fresh fruit and vegetables, then our 3-day fast, and then 2 more days of fresh fruit and vegetables. That actually works really, really well. In fact, it makes the fast easier because for a lot of us anyway, going on just fruit and vegetables for 2 days is kind of like fasting anyway. But it's helpful to take the same amount of time to come out of the fast as you fasted. It's hard to do. I would say in this matter, do as I say, not as I do. If I fast for 3 days and can, wait till the 3rd day after the fast, eat normally, that's really helpful on multiple levels. Another helpful tip is breath mints, because when you fast, detox of different kinds happens, and your friends, your family will be grateful if you use breath mints in some measure. When you're fasting, whatever the focus is, expect temptation and interference to go off that focus. It's not just pure spiritual interference, though that's a big part of it. It might also be psychological. We are in a food preoccupied consumer society. Self-denial is not a cultural value. And so when you fast in any way, you go against the flow. Even, like I said, fasting from something like shopping can be difficult. Fasting from not buying something new for a month can be really difficult for some people. It might be a fast you're called to do. Physical self-denial for spiritual purposes. I found that in a longer fast, day 2 is often the hardest. Day 1 and 3 are similar. Day 2 is the hardest. Then by day 4, it starts to diminish. And after a few days, you're hungry because it's time to eat, not because you're really physically hungry. And you're hungry because you're bored. And what you discover is that a lot of time is freed up between the preparation and eating and cleanup of the meals. The intention is use that for prayer and scripture and journaling and thinking. You might find that you need less sleep in an extended fast. I know in longer fasts I've done, 6 hours is absolute max. Use that extra time strategically. And it might not be always being on, with reading the Bible and praying. It might mean actually other rest or other reading. You'll discover when you fast that you will have greater clarity of thought and greater spiritual sensitivity. I found in some fasts that when I go to pray, I get down on my knees and boom, it's like I'm right there. I'm ready to go in God's presence. When you end a fast of any significant length, more than a day or 2, it'll take a few days for your digestive system to get back to normal. And so travel is not necessarily a good plan at that point if you're coming out of an extended fast. Isaiah chapter 58 talks about some of the results of fasting. He begins in verse 6 talking about the nature of the fast he's calling for, and talks about loosing the chains of the oppressed and sharing your food with the hungry and clothing the naked. Then he says, then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help. He will say, here I am. That passage, the nature of the fasting and the benefits of the fasting reminds me a lot of what Jesus said in Luke chapter 4, which was a quote actually from Isaiah 61, where he said, the Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. See, fasting and prayer is a good way to join Jesus on his mission. Is there an obvious reason for you to consider fasting soon? What's the nature of the fast? How long should you fast? Hebrews 11:6 says that without faith it's impossible to please God. Whoever comes to God must believe that he is, that he exists, and that he's the rewarder of those who earnestly seek him. Fasting fits into that category of earnestly seeking him. And as you seek God in fasting and prayer, may he break through in the way you most desperately need and even beyond. God bless. Press on.